to go. Thank you, Jim. And welcome to friends sitting here in the room. Welcome to people watching through the internet. This is our last week of this exploration of mindfulness of breathing, a universal meditation practice. We've covered a lot of ground, and I hope that some of the information that I've shared with you has helped you in your practice. But of course, the test is in what you're experiencing as you practice on a regular basis, hopefully every day, and observe what you're experiencing during your meditation, gradually applying some of the suggestions that I've made in order to work with the mind. I hope that your meditation is becoming a little more peaceful, that the mind is a little more aware, mindful, and able to sustain attention on the breathing. We're using the natural flow of the breath because it's a very accessible object. It's not necessarily the best object to use as a focal point, but it is a very good one. I hope that with practice and experience, you will find the breath to be your very, very good friend, your best friend, your most reliable friend, a friend that can bring you tremendous sense of well-being, excuse me, and even a sense of tremendous peace and joy. You know, we all like to have friends, and it's really good to have friends. The Buddha said that one of the blessings is to have a kalyana mitta, which is usually translated as a good friend. And there are many qualities of a good friend. But the good friend is one who supports you, helps you to move towards positive qualities and develop positive lifestyle and all the good things that, you know, a good friend would do for you. Well, the breath can be our good friend. If we develop this relationship with the breath, if we cultivate it, if we just learn how to trust with the natural flow of the breath and begin to unburden the mind of all the extraneous thinking that normally preoccupies the mind, all that preoccupation with past and future and the busyness of life. As we trust with being just with the flow of the breath, relax into it, it will bring us to states of great peace and great focus. And those states can open doors that will lead to great revelations. Now, the instructions that I've given over the last 4 or 5 weeks have indicated that it's a gradual process. Now, we begin with just gently holding attention on just knowing the in and the out breath, letting the body breathe as it wants. And by gently holding on to the in and out breath, knowing the in and out breath, also noticing the activity of the mind, and that is the natural fallout. And so then our intention is to let go, to simplify, let go, and bringing the attention a little closer to the breath. Through this process, we begin to experience the breath a little more fully, a little bit more clearly. So we notice the character of the breath as something that changes. Sometimes it's a little longer, a little shorter. We notice that it's got character or characteristics. And so then we engage the breath a little more easily. And the mental chatter and the discursive thinking about life and business and the past and this and that diminishes considerably. However, there is still quite a lot of thinking, and gradually the thinking becomes more concerned about what you're doing with the breath. You're thinking about the meditation. process. And I call this the internal dialogue. And I suggested to, let that go. Just recognize it, let it go, and incline towards experiencing the natural flow of the breath a little more fully. So we begin to notice the whole breath flowing in and flowing out. And we begin to notice it for a longer period of time. And the experience of the breath becomes more full, more prominent, because consciousness is engaging the experience of the breath as we notice it through the sense of touch. So the breath is filling our consciousness. It's the conscious experience. And it's something that flows in and flows out. And as this process happens, we're becoming more quiet, ever more still, ever more peaceful. The breath itself begins to become more subtle, because if the physical and mental activities are diminishing, the body and the brain, which is part of the body, and it's the organ that's most associated with the activity of the mind, as the activity of the mind and the activity of the body diminish, then the breathing just naturally becomes more subtle, because the body, and in particular the brain, don't need so much oxygen. So the breath becomes more subtle, more refined, and the mind becomes increasingly more quiet and contented to be with the breathing. So this is where we left it off last week, the mind knowing the whole breath, flowing in and flowing out. The next step in this process is just a continuation of that calming process, continuing to calm the mind, continuing to calm the body and the breathing. And the process of calming is just like the process of relaxation. It's not something you can do through effort or willpower. It's the stopping of the doing that's required. So it's just the letting go of the doing and allowing the mind to just engage more quietly, more peacefully, with more contentment, engaging that experience of the breath, being contented to relax and be with one breath at a time and experience the whole breath without that urge to be doing something else. So this calming of the mind and the body and the breathing is a natural process that results from the letting go of the doing. And this is quite difficult for people like us to actually be able to do. It's often the case that there are difficulties. One is because of fear, and the other one is because of excitement. Now, the fear, it is quite natural, because we're moving into an area that we're very unfamiliar with, we're very unaccustomed to. We're accustomed to being in control, because the doing part of our mind, that which wills and initiates action, doing, that gives us the sense of self. That's what I am. I do, therefore I am. And so in this meditation at this level, we have to let go of that, the doing, and just moving towards more being. Now, this is difficult, because it's almost like, you're going to lose yourself. Yes, you're going to lose that part of the personality that you identify with. The doer has to be left behind in order to move towards this greater peace and stillness and silence. In order for the sense of being one, there has to be the letting go of that doer. The other aspect of the identity is the identification of that gives us a sense of self is our ability to describe, our ability to compartmentalize, describe, and define and compare. So because the discriminating faculty gives us our sense of self. It's almost because I have my views and my opinions, and I know this and I know that, and I can recognize that. I exist. Now, in this meditation, again, if we are going to move towards greater stillness, greater silence, and engage with that breath flowing in and flowing out more fully with this bare awareness, we have to leave behind the discursive internal commentary that's classifying, oh, this is this sort of breath, oh, that's that sort of breath, oh, now this is happening, oh, now that is happening. We have to leave the commentator behind. And that means leaving part of ourselves. That it's not really ourselves. It's not what we are. It is what we are accustomed to. It is something we identify with very strongly because that's something that's so commonly present in our conscious experience. But we can move beyond it. And so this deepening of meditation at this level is really like stepping beyond ourselves in this definition of the doer and the describer and the verbalizing of the experience. So we're going to experience something in a different way, if you wish. It's stepping beyond the boundaries that's set up by those aspects of mind. And that is frightening to us because it's like we're losing ourselves. We're losing what we're familiar with, but it enables us to experience something much deeper and much more and much closer to what we really are in our essence. And so this is one of the obstacles, is that kind of reluctance to let go, that sort of unwillingness to just relax, be, and experience. The next obstacle or aspect of this difficulty that may arise is excitement, exuberance that comes from when we experience something new, something different, especially if it's kind of good. Or, it's just so unusual for the mind to start to relax and become peaceful and collect on the breathing. And as I mentioned on a previous occasion, naturally there is what we could call a more open flow of energy through the body, which is quite normal. As the mind connects with the breathing, then we experience this flow of energy in the body. That can become exhilarating and sometimes disruptive. So it's always calming and quietening and making the experience more peaceful. We're not looking for exhilarating energy experiences that make us bounce up and down. That can happen, but that is actually a coarser form of meditation. It's not so peaceful. The other form of excitement is just that immediately the mind, bounces back. Wow, what was that? And you want to go back to categorizing and describing and putting it into some preconceived definition according to your conditioning. That will happen, but know that to avoid it, or at least this is not the direction, so that the direction is always more calm, more peaceful, more clear, more quiet, more still, and relaxing, being at ease, being more peaceful with the flow of the breath, calming the mental activities, calming the bodily activities, allowing the breath to become ever more subtle, ever more peaceful as we rest with it, as we just experience it and gradually becoming one with it, so that the separation between us and the breath starts to vanish, and the breath is experienced as it's almost that is the only experience in consciousness. The breath becomes increasingly subtle. The way we experience the breath changes. It's not the coarse breath that has such characteristics of beginning and end, and the differences in the breath, the variation in the way we experience the breath gradually diminish, so that the breath becomes this almost like an ever-present, subtle object in consciousness. Almost the more the mind becomes still and quiet, the more the breath becomes still, singular. It's a collecting, it's a coming together. And this is the path to greater peace, of course. Now, this takes time. It takes time and practice. As I indicated last week, I think that most of us who practice on a regular basis, hopefully at least once a day, I was just saying to one of the participants present here that it makes quite a big difference if we can meditate twice a day. And, if at least 30 minutes each time, it will make quite a big difference. But if we can do it at whatever is possible for us on a regular basis, I think we can develop sufficient skill at working with this meditation to reach on a somewhat regular basis, a state of meditation or a quality of meditation where we experience the breath quite comfortably, quite fully, and can sustain attention with it for quite a reasonable period of time with ease, and enjoy that experience. It's like a rest for us, where we actually enjoy the meditation. It's not a tug-of-war meditation, which often is the case when people start meditating. And you don't want to make it an aggressive tug-of-war if you're still at that level. Make it a playful tug-of-war where you kind of give a fair bit of rope to the mind that's still roaming, but you can gently bring it back. So we never want it to be a violent tug-of-war, a gentle tug-of-war, a playful one. And eventually we don't, with skill, it's no longer a tug-of-war. The mind is actually resting and enjoying, experiencing the whole breath coming in, experiencing the whole breath going out, letting go of the need to be doing something, letting go of the need to be explaining and describing something, letting go of the discursiveness and becoming more engaged with just knowing this peaceful experience. I think most meditators can come to a peaceful state of meditation at this level. Now, there is much more that can take place, and I intend to talk a little more about deeper levels of meditation and experiences that are possible for people who are more committed or for people who are just more gifted. There is no, like a fixed formula that everybody has to experience this in this way or in a particular time frame. Each person is different. But I do want to talk a little more about the, let's say, deeper and more refined levels of meditation that are not so readily accessible for most meditators. But before doing that, because before I fill your mind with all those concepts, I want to take the opportunity to actually do a period of meditation first and then do a little more talking afterwards, as well as questions. So this evening we're going to do our meditation a little earlier. And before we start, I will take any question that either someone here has or someone who types it in, and I'll give you a few minutes to consider that whether or not you have a question. Do any of you here have a question?
I do, but it will probably apply to the talk that you're going to do afterwards. So if I just throw it out, you could, as you're doing.
No, save it for after.
All right, because you may answer it. Yeah, so, but I came with it.
Doesn't look like anyone is typing. So I think we're probably good to just do a period of meditation. And if people type and I see it afterwards, I'll just answer it after the meditation. Let's just do a 20-minute session of meditation. Once again, I'll guide you through it. Jim has already set the timer. So let us begin by just once again settling into a posture that feels comfortable, so that your body is stable, with your back somewhat erect, the top of the head toward the ceiling, and allowing the shoulders to hang down, arms hanging loosely and hands resting comfortably. Allowing the eyes to close gently, keeping the mouth closed with the teeth slightly apart, and allowing the body to breathe as it wants, whenever it wants, through the nose. Being aware of the room you're sitting in, hopefully it's a relatively quiet room. You have some privacy, no need to be concerned about what's going on outside. Feeling safe, so that we can actually take time out from all our external preoccupations of home and work. We can also put aside the past and the future for a little while. And we take time out so that we can make a gentle effort in teaching the mind how to become more aware, more focused, more peaceful. So leaving all our other responsibilities and duties aside, just bring the attention into the body and let the mind sink into the body. Noticing what it feels like to be sitting. Taking a couple of minutes to systematically relax the body, starting with the sensations around the face, the forehead, and around the head, just releasing any pressure or tightness. And as we come down to the neck and shoulders, releasing, relaxing. And as we experience the arms, we let them hang freely. Coming to the hands, we notice the subtle tingling sensations as we let them rest. And bringing the attention into the chest. Notice the subtle feelings, the beating of the heart, gentle movements, and release any tightness. Allowing the attention to sink deeper into the abdomen, relaxing the muscles, experiencing the gentle rising and falling. And experiencing the legs and feet, allowing them to be at rest. So that now the body is sitting quite still, and the mind is sitting with the body. And we notice that the body is breathing. We know the body is breathing through the sense of touch, the subtle sensations. And we allow the body to breathe as it wants, whenever it wants. But we arouse the awareness that knows the breath as it comes in and goes out. And we try to sustain this awareness. Being willing to let go of the other things that come through the mind. And just guiding the attention towards this one experience of the breath flowing in, flowing out, relaxing with the breath. Peacefully breathing in, peacefully breathing out. you can start being attentive to the breathing and allowing your attention to encompass the whole body, being at ease with the body and opening your mind to your surroundings, being at peace with things just as they are. And now you can move your head from side to side and back and forth, and move your arms, shoulders, hands. Stretch your legs, and when you wish to, you can open your eyes. Now, with this practice of mindfulness of breathing, or with actually any meditation technique, or maybe I shouldn't overgeneralize, with most meditation techniques, they progress in a particular direction. It does, these days there are so many different types of things that are called meditation. I should not overgeneralize. But with mindfulness of breathing, we're moving towards this increasingly peaceful state of mind, but a mind state that is vibrantly awake, where the awareness, the clarity, the presence, the sense of knowing is growing, not diminishing. What is diminishing is the complexity, that which is associated with doing and the discursive thinking and the movement of the attention, the fragmentation of the attention. So the attention is becoming sharp and clear and focused and approaching this sense of singularity, the sense of being one with the breathing. And the closer we get to that, the more peaceful, the more still, the more beautiful and enjoyable the experience is. And often, this is something that is not readily experienced, but can be experienced through practice. Now, if we are committed to this practice and can continue along this path, it is possible to arrive at some quite out of this world experiences, because they really are out of this world. And this is something that we may already be able to appreciate if we have just had a little success in moving towards stillness and silence, because you can see how you're withdrawing the attention, and as the experience of the breath becomes more fully present in consciousness, that is the content of your consciousness. In other words, you're no longer engaging in the sensory world out there. We're withdrawing. And so the sensory world of, say, seeing and hearing and tasting and then the conceptual world of thinking about is being left behind. Now, this can continue. The more the meditation becomes still and peaceful and silent, and the experience of the meditation object becomes fuller, more singular, then we leave more and more of the world behind. The world is left behind. And this can actually, go very deep. So that as I was indicating, the experience of the breath, it becomes quite a different thing than what we start off in the beginning with. The breath itself becomes so subtle. It's characteristic. The way we perceive it changes. It becomes almost just an object of beauty and stillness that's identical with the stillness and the silence of the knowing itself. And if this keeps going in this direction, eventually, if we keep being less doing, more still, more silent, more engaging, just being with this experience, allowing this experience to blossom into ever greater refinement, it's as if the breath itself disappears. The coarse breath disappears. And what is left in our experience of knowing is just this beauty, or this joy, or this bliss, whatever you wish to call it. But it is something that's prominent in consciousness. And at these levels, and again I stress that it's, it is a subjective thing, and it's not what happens, in what order, at what stage, at what time, is purely subjective, and there are many exceptions to the generalized direction that I'm giving. But the coarse breath gradually disappears, and the sense of the breathing or the perception of the breath is different. With this, and at these very subtle, deep levels of quietness and stillness, it's like the mind is now able to actually reveal itself or reveal its essential nature. The Buddha said that the essential or the basic nature of consciousness is luminous, radiant, but it becomes tarnished or covered over by the various activities that continually cover it. And so all of our thinking and planning and all of the sensory input, and that is all the disturbance or I don't want to say disturbance, but let's say that is stuff that is happening in consciousness. When all that stuff settles down and is left behind, it is possible for the natural luminosity, radiance of consciousness to be perceived, to be experienced. And this is happens to meditators who go into deep meditation almost regardless of what technique they're using. And you will hear people of all traditions talk about seeing the light or perceiving light. And this is not something that is limited to a meditation technique or a particular belief system. The experience is related to the refinement and the calming and the quietening and the stilling of the mind that enables this experience to happen. And it is the natural luminosity of the mind. It's like, exactly how one describes it when one, tries to talk about it, depends on one's subjective conditioning. It's often described as a white light seeing, and people talk about seeing light. But at this level, it is not seeing through the eyes. It's not seeing in with the vision. It is a mind, purely mental experience. There is no seeing, and it's not hearing. It is a purely mind experience. But when, in retrospect, what is it? What could it be kind of compared with? It is like the seeing of radiance, of light. And so this is now something that happens to different people at different times. For some people, it happens actually early on. They perceive light very quickly. But usually, if the mind is not calm and sufficiently quiet and sufficiently still, you really can't do much with that perception of light. It's just, comes and goes. It's not that useful. But if the perception of light or the luminosity of the mind manifests within that stillness, deep silence, deep stability, then it becomes something that fills your mind and you can actually be with. And it is the doorway to extraordinary experiences. Now, there are a vast number of extraordinary experiences, and a lot of them are not very useful, unfortunately. And many people get very preoccupied with things that are not all that useful, but they are extraordinary. It's just a different realm. So people, you see yourself. You see yourself sitting. You have what we call an out-of-body experience, where you actually can see yourself sitting in the room. You're somewhere else. Is that possible? Yes. Because consciousness is not localized. It's not tied to the brain or your eyes. So yes. And what people describe of their ability to experience other realms and other beings in other realms, and even communicate and see and experience, a vast variety of strange and unusual things. It is true. They are real experiences. The mind can do that. And the thing is that all of that is just more creations of the mind. It is still activity of a sort. And so within the Buddhist framework, we don't want to get too excited or enthralled by these extraordinary experiences that are quite mind-blowing, actually, but they are still not the goal, is the way the Buddha would teach on this, and it is the way my teacher always taught about these states. And he always encouraged to go further, to go to the source. And the source here is, again, just that luminosity, just that, in Pali it's called a nimitta. It's an object that becomes the pure luminosity, radiance of the mind itself, without anything else being added to it. And resting, being closer. And with skill, if one does not get distracted, and these are already very deep levels of meditation, because even at this level, it is kind of out of this world, because the sensory world has been left behind. But it is not yet beyond the world. And beyond the world is when a meditator can utilize this natural luminosity of the mind and let go to the ultimate degree, in terms of really allowing the process of unification to proceed until there is a complete unity of mind. And that is, this object is so blissful, so beautiful, it draws you in, you go with it, you become it, it takes you into what in the Buddhist terminology is called the jhana in the Pali, or in Sanskrit it's called dhyana. And dhyana is the Chinese version of that is Chan, and that's where the Chan school or the Chan school. Dhyana is a absorption, a jhana in Buddhism, and there are levels of them, but they are all characteristics of this that transcends outside of the world, beyond the world, if you wish. It is the mind that is completely withdrawn and unified in this blissful purity, where awareness is sharp and clear, concentration is singular, and there is no reception. The reception is gone out. There is no reception through the senses. The world of the senses has ceased. The body has disappeared. The discursiveness of the mind is dead. It's silent. Within that state, there is no way to formulate thought, and there is no doing. There is no doing of anything. The ability to do something is left behind. The ability to comprehend is left behind, because comprehension always implies a measuring. Oh, this is that, and then describing it, comparing it to something else, and then describing it accordingly. That's comprehension. That is all left behind. There is just the most powerful experience of something out of this world, beyond the world, and the world can't reach it. And it is a transcendental kind of experience. Now, the mind stays in that state for as long as the energy of the momentum that brought it, allowed it to go enter a state of absorption, was generated during your practice. If the power of letting go is really strong, that state will last for a long time. But the mind withdraws from that state of its own. It's not like you decide, oh, I've had a good enough meditation, now I'll go and have my cup of tea. That ability is not there because all of that has been left behind. So these absorption states are, they are out of this world. They are out of the world. They are blissful, real state, a reality far exceeding anything that we normally can compare it with through our sensory consciousness. When one withdraws, or when there is the coming out of a state like that, the mind, there is something that's shifted. You can't avoid but notice something is shifted. I mean, the things that you identified with so strongly for so long, the will, I have will, I choose, that completely disappeared. Wow. But there was still clarity and knowing. But that doing, that's not really what you are. And the world of the senses, you for the first time, you experience what it is to be unburdened, completely unburdened by the world. It is quite something because all our investments are in the world. So your attitudes may change considerably. But more than that is that this mind is then an extraordinarily, especially once it's experienced something so deep, it is an extremely powerful instrument that can really start to challenge some of the preconceptions we have regarding ourselves, life, experience, the world. And this challenging is what leads to radical seeing, which we call insight. And this is when people have, these deep, penetrating revelation of the nature of existence, because they're able to completely challenge the preconceived notions that we have of solidity, of constancy, of self as a permanent entity, as a separation, and that the world of the sensory field is such a great thing. So, somebody like the Buddha is then born, or when I say born, the Buddha is born, not the person, the knowing, the enlightened mind that can say, the world is suffering, it's unsatisfactory, it's impermanent, it's not self, and it frees the mind from a lot of the biases and limitations that normally constrict us. Now, these are really lofty states. In Buddhism, we talk about these as very, very lofty states of concentration, refined states of consciousness, powerful experiences, life-changing experiences. And they are not readily available. It's not like Joe Blow down the street can easily access these. It usually does take quite a tremendous commitment of practice under the right conditions and for considerable time, and also with suitable guidance. As I was saying, when we start talking about these refined things in consciousness, also that's when you really do need an experienced teacher to guide you in the right direction. At the level that we've been talking about, I don't think it's so critical that we have, that much guidance. We can all practice meditation and, work with little guidance helps, and we can become more peaceful, and we can make ourselves better human beings. But at these more refined levels, when we start talking about deep meditations where really extraordinary things are happening, I think guidance is very much necessary. And when I hear people talk about meditation these days, I don't know, it's a subjective thing. People experience all sorts of things. I think that if you are experiencing anything approaching these deeper levels of meditation, it would be wise to seek out someone whom you have confidence in and who has a great deal of experience. And maybe they can point you in the right direction, because it is possible to go astray. It is possible to go astray. So that's the, that's just a pointer, a teaser to kind of give you an idea of what is possible. It is possible for us to know that we are not men, and we are not women, and we are not matter, and we are not of this world. It is possible to transcend, to actually experience that beyond. And meditation is one of the paths that can help us achieve that. So that's my teaser for the evening. I'd like to leave the rest of the time for questions and also final discussion and comments. And I know someone here had a question.
I can wait until see if anybody else has. I'm always talking.
Well, no one else is typing.
Okay.
Yes.
No. You mentioned this a little bit when you were saying that different things happen at different stages for different people. But I was recently listening to and had gone to a lecture. It was actually a Swami of an ashram talking. Mm-hmm. And he was representing, the Sadhguru for this ashram, when he was saying that people can start out with meditations at a range of levels, and he did attempt to kind of put it on levels. And they would say just general meditation, you're just relaxing, and then other people might start to use like visuals in their meditations. And I might be aware of that when people get together and they want to meditate for world peace. They might visualize everybody being in a great abundance. And then he went on from there, saying that, or you might want to meditate on a form, say your guru or Jesus or Mother Mary or tree, whatever. And from there, maybe people might just separate you. Just blend into, the is moment that they're there without these forms, releasing these forms. And then I said, or, people might want to meditate on an object. And I hear you mention the word object. And then I was kind of wondering after that, what is it that he was really meaning? And then I think of them saying that there are many like yogis who are out there fasting and meditating for the world, to help the world improve, to increase in their consciousness. And so they might be focusing on world consciousness. How do they do that? I mean, what are they thinking of? If it's not, like if I were going to focus on world consciousness, I'm not sure how to do that necessarily at a level without thinking of abundance for people or the word or sending it out into the minds of people or something. How do they do that? What are they doing out there?
Well, there's no way for me to know what they're doing.
How exactly?
With regards, for a start, just one comment with regards to when I use the word object and what that teacher was saying about how people can meditate on these different things, or they can use an object. Whereas when I use the word object, what I mean by that is whatever you're directing your attention to. That's the object. So it's the what the attention is directed toward. So I don't use the word object as necessarily a physical thing. It can be a purely mental thing. It can be an image, or it can be a mantra, or it's just what you direct attention to. That is the object of your attention. Now, with regards, all those are valid, and they're all good approaches to working with the mind and directing attention for a particular purpose. Now, with regards yogis who can utilize, say, how would you use the power of your mind to bring about beneficial results in the world? Well, for a start, how much power does your mind have? How much power do you unfortunately, most people's minds don't have a lot. What gives the mind its power is concentration, is the ability to focus attention and hold attention is what gives it power. So people who, in Buddhism as well, we have these meditations which are actually very altruistic. And so we have cultivation of the 4 Brahma Viharas. These are the divine abidings, where you generate within your mind compassion, loving kindness. They call it sympathetic joy. It's rejoicing in the happiness of others. It is much better. It's a long way of saying it. And equanimity. These are 4 qualities of the pure mind. And we could say that they are the emotions using that in inverted commas, the emotions of a Buddha or an enlightened being, because these are the natural inclination of the mind. So one generates, or if one is already at that level, these are natural. It's not that you have to do it, it happens spontaneously. But for a meditator, one meditates on that so that you generate a mind filled with compassion and beginning with yourself and radiating it out to the world around you, to those around you and the world around you. Boundless, they say, it's boundless, infinite, all-encompassing compassion for all the welfare of all living beings. And the same with loving kindness. This loving kindness. It's like that the kindness that one feels and the love that one feels without any attachment, so without any discriminating choosing between this and that. It's so this sense of kindness and caring towards oneself, towards others, and expanding it and directing it, boundless, infinite towards all living beings. And the feeling of rejoicing in the happiness of all. And then the equanimity. So these are, you can say that these are 4 different emotions or 4 different tastes, if you wish, flavors, 4 different flavors of a mind that is, say, extraordinarily focused and able to radiate this sense. And the question of, well, does that really affect? Well, I mean, the mind is a very powerful thing, very powerful thing, and abiding in those pure states and radiating that energy out, it does have power. So that's what the Buddhist concept of that would be: meditating on the 4 Brahma Viharas, arousing this pure mind state and radiating it beyond the boundaries, all boundaries. So that would be something one could do, and the Buddha greatly encouraged that, the meditation on that form of meditation as well. And mindfulness of breathing is just one of the Buddhist techniques of meditation, but it is, and by no means exclusive to Buddhists either. But it is one that is very simple to teach and to practice for people of different faiths and beliefs. But some teachers, we have Venerable Sujata is a monk who lives in Illinois. He travels widely. He's a Sri Lankan monk. And he comes and does retreats here. And he's very, very strong on loving kindness meditation. That's his primary meditation practice, and that's what he teaches. And it's very powerful. It's very good. So, again, that's a matter of preference. Any other questions, my friends? Someone from out there in the world, zeros and ones? Well, my friends, I've enjoyed doing these 6 weeks. By nature, I'm not someone who likes to plan things too much. So it even surprises me at times how each week unfolds. I mean, it's not that I don't really obviously I have a general idea of what I want to present and share, but it is always interesting how each event or each time it's a little different than one had maybe thought. And in some ways, I like that because it gives it an authenticity, that it's not a repetition of something. For those of you who have read my book, The Meditative Path, but are interested in getting some, kind of deeper, sort of more meaty and deeper information, especially about the more refined states of concentration, I highly recommend a book by a friend of mine, Ajahn Brahm is his name, and the book is Mindfulness, Bliss, and Beyond. And that is available. You can order that through Amazon. It's probably available at many bookstores as well. It is a very in-depth book, and probably a lot of it may not be of so much interest to you if you're not a Buddhist scholar. But in it, there are many chapters that deal in exclusively with regards mindfulness of breathing and the deeper states of concentration, how they arise and what constitutes them. He also speaks at length regarding deep insight that can arise through the practice of deep meditation.